here we go. All right, Chris, you got me?
Yeah, I got you.
Go ahead, start the stern, work to the bow.
That's the phone there?
Yeah, 6820, you can check us out the AK bridge.
Roger. The Elk River, we can get it from baseline, 50 bail, westbound. Bay engine, we can get everything from the next area.
So what we have here is we're going to be backing out a loaded barge, and the tide is flooding pretty good right now. That means it's coming from right to left. But as I told you in one of my other videos, sometimes it's good to take a look at what's happening right where you're at. And I looked over and I saw one of our booms, the containment boom, is kind of going a little bit from left to right. So that what that means is, even though the tide's going from right to left, I've got a little bit of eddy here. Now what I need to do is get this barge and back it up, and if once the stern of the tug, because the tug is deeper than the barge at the way it's configured right now, when I back up, the tide is going to start grabbing the stern and pulling me over towards the left. That will also make the bow come over, and I got to make sure that the bow doesn't hit the dock on the other side, on the right hand side. So that's what we've got going on. Now I got to make a security call.
If you can, 12 back.
Oh.
Yeah, it's very
Gotta wait my turn.
What are you bound for? Green River Strike. We're rounding up with 31 Louis.
Alright, alright, we go by your port side?
I'll go right ahead, sure.
Alright, thanks. Yeah, too.
Security call, Tug Elk River, getting underway from east of 3, IMTT Bayonne. We'll be backing out, and westbound in the Kills, bound up for berth 51, Port Newark. Sarah Ann from the Elk River.
Sarah Ann.
Yeah, Cap, you cool with me backing up and spinning around there? I think there's room for the two of us, if you're all right with that.
Yeah, come back with it, Cap.
I'm gonna be backing out of east of 3, and I'm thinking that I can do that with you coming by. There should be enough room for the both of us if you're okay with that.
Yes, sir, Cap. Absolutely. Bring it on back.
All right, very good. Oh, what did you say, Chris?
If you want to start sliding back, we're just down to a spring line.
Okay, starting to slide back. Okay, now I'm putting a lot of pressure on one of the pads over here, so I gotta lift my stern up a little bit. You can see the bow is already getting pulled over to the right. That's because the flood tide is grabbing the stern of the barge and pulling it to the left. So now I'm lifting the stern off, the bow's coming in, they're trying to get that last line off up there. I'll help them out by bringing the bow over, and that's gonna help me when I go to back up anyway. Nice job, Chris. All right, here I go. He's got that in.
Alright, we're about to touch back up on the bow. Your stern's off like 5.
Very good. So now I've got my rudder hard over to port, so I can start coming ahead on my starboard engine, so that you can see the tide is already grabbing me and pulling my stern. Oh, sorry. Trying to do two things at once, talking to Chris and really trying to talk to you. So I'm trying to keep the stern off, keep the bow from falling.
Right there, touch up on like by the stern yoke, you there?
Yeah, that's fine though. We'll be able to slide on that, right?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, very good. So this is, I don't know if you can see this or not, but the Sarah Ann, that's a tugging with 2 strap barges. He's coming out behind us there, so I can't come shooting out of the slip. I got to come kind of slow, so I give him room, and that will also give me time to get out of here and roll this thing around. Now obviously if I do a counterclockwise turn, I'll only have 90 degrees that I'll have to turn. But the way the tide's going and spinning around, and I've got another barge behind the one that's the immediate threat, sometimes it's easier to let the tide do what it wants to do.
We're starting to open up on that pad now. We're like a foot wide.
Very good. So I'm gonna let the tide do what it wants to do. It wants to pull my stern to the left, and I'm gonna set up to keep the swing so I swing right around
Like
270 degrees clockwise instead of doing the easy 90 degrees. Well, I say easy, it's shorter, but it's not easier because of the tide. All right, we'll call it 0720 underway. Now what I've done is I set my rudder hard a starboard. Then I'll stop with my port engine. I'm making 2.3 knots, 2.93 knots astern, so I'm ready to start rolling this thing around. Add a little power. Check in with traffic. Traffic from the Elk River. We are underway at this time.
Elk River, Roger, that's the Sarah Ann passing you. Port Scholar is approaching you. At Port Ivory, there's 4 units. First one's Christian Weinauer. And St. Andrew is, we can get away from 86. And the bag is the EOCI battle itself.
Very good. And where's the Fort Schuyler going?
Magazine, something.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, so now we're about 180 degrees out of where we want to go. So we're going to keep rolling right around. I'm looking over here, and it is the Fort Schuyler. Traffic didn't understand what I was saying, but that's okay. We can work around that. So I'm going to talk to the guy that's coming up behind me and let him know what I'm doing, because I'm kind of doing something odd by I'm facing the wrong direction. Fort Schuyler from the Elk River.
Schuyler.
Good morning, Cap. Just came out of east of 3, and I'm coming around on the right-hand wheel, and I'll see you on the 1. I don't know, I'm trying to do something new with my cameras here. I'm trying to see if you guys are able to see this, but with all the cavitation and shaking, it might be a little blurry. But this is us, and this is the other tug that's coming by. This is the one that just went by us right there. And so I need to make sure that I'm backed up enough to give him enough room. So I've reduced a little bit of my head power on the port engine, so that not only do I continue to turn, but I keep backing up as well to give the other tug more and more room. Now I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a red line here. That's my predictor line, and even though I'm turning, my stern should be, that predictor line should be pointing to the left, because I'm turning and the bow's coming to the right, but because the tide is flooding so well, all of us, you can see, are moving down the kills here to the west, to the right. This barge is loaded pretty well, so she's pretty heavy. In reading some of the comments, somebody was asking about wind and tide, and as a general rule, the wind is more an issue with a light barge, and the tide is more an issue on a loaded barge. And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Now I'm coming ahead more on my port engine, my starboard engine. I'm going to go the clutch and then to neutral, let it settle down, let the shaft brake work on it, and we clutch ahead. And we got two engines ahead with the rudder hard over. You can see there's the guy straight ahead of us right now that we're making room for.
Hamilton Avenue, 220 by 11.5.
But anyway, if you think about it, a light barge has very little bit of barge in the water and a lot of it out of the water, which acts as a big sail. Now I'm centering my rudder right here so that as the barge continues to turn, it slows the turn and we start getting some way on. We got about 2 knots of headway right now. And we're off. Oh, these digital controls, I can put this on sync. And I can bring this back, and that just means the two engines are going to sync up together on one throttle right here. I bring that back to remind myself that one throttle is controlling two engines. That way the engines will be in sync. When they're out of sync, they go ooh, 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 and drives everybody in the boat crazy. So now what I'm going to do is pull my chart plotter down so I can look ahead, because they said they had 4 units up there that I had to worry about. I'm looking ahead. I see there's a big ship, the tug, a couple tugs and a big ship coming my way. So we'll deal with that as we get a little closer, because they're pretty far out right now. Now I had told you before that when you use a chart plotter, if you have a predictor line, we set ours to 6 minutes so that it's 1/10 of an hour. So what that means is this is where we're at right here. If you can see that, like I say, I don't know how well this is going to show up on the other camera or if you're going to use it, but right here, in 6 minutes we should be right there according to the predictor line. That thing will grow and shrink depending on the speed of that we're making. And so I'll use those predictor lines to figure out where I'm going to meet people and make sure that we're in a good spot for that. Now, since I know where I'm going and there isn't any immediate traffic, I'm going to pull my chart plotter down so I can keep an eye on that ship. Oh, you know what? It's not a ship. It's a ATB. Captain Kevin O. We'll call him Captain Kevin O. runs that. He was very influential to me when I first started out. He and I worked at the same company, and he was very kind to me, and was one of the captains I wanted to be like. And now he's running. He's been working on tugboats all his life, but he's had another company and a big ATB, and I think he's doing really well. We'll say hi to him as he comes by.
Traffic.
So what I can do is, since he's a big boy, I can see that in 6 minutes, this right here is the Bayonne Bridge. That bridge is ahead of us right there. He's going to be past that in 6 minutes. And then if you look to see where I am, I'll be right about here in 6 minutes. So we'll catch him right about here. So that shouldn't be an issue at all. So there's no need for me to call him or anything. We'll have plenty of room. We're going to meet in a good spot.
Reconfigured our tow, lower the baggage, now bound for sea. Overall length, 600 foot. Dimensions are 54 wide. Deep draft, 10.5 on the tow.
Okay, so those margins in your hand.
Yeah, we went from the push to the chain of tow. Bell's 8 miles. Good morning, Cap. You need us on, brother?
Now if you look ahead, you'll see this red buoy coming up alongside our starboard side. This is a good indicator of things to come when I make my turn around the bridge up there. So I'll look and I'll see the tide. You can see the flood tide working on that buoy pretty good right there. And underneath the bridge, there's a light tug coming our way, and behind that is Captain Kevin's ATV. Some people ask me if I miss being offshore, and you know, I do miss being offshore. I love going for long tows, go for days without seeing any land. Sometimes more than a week without seeing land. It's wonderful. I like going into different ports and all that. But sometimes it's not that fun. Ah, there we go. Good morning, Captain Kevin.
Morning, Kim. How are you?
I'm fine. Looking good coming under the bridge. I think we'll see you on the one here on my side.
What it is? Get 6-7 of me?
6-7, you got it. So now what he's telling me is let's get off a regular channel and let's go where we can talk. Hopefully I don't have to beep this out. Good morning, Kevin.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I couldn't be better. Getting off tonight. Providence.
Ah, nice. I'm filming a video for my channel right now, and I was talking about old Captain Kevin O. Guy who had a lot of influence on my career, and I told him probably be saying hi to you as I came by.
You're making a video?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, I'll look for a stuntman.
There you go. Well, good deal. Hopefully, you won't. Hopefully you'll beat the 4th of July sailboating flotilla up there as you come by Newport.
I hope so. You getting off anytime soon? I'll be up at 3.
Yeah, no, 3 for me. Well, 2 more from Wednesday.
All right. Hey, good luck.
Thank you so much. Always good to talk to you, Kevin. Be safe, my brother.
My pleasure. Take care.
So one thing I was saying was that, yeah, I do like the offshore tows, but I don't like getting beat up when the weather's bad, and sometimes it makes crew change difficult because if you're offshore, you can't crew change, so you don't know exactly what day you're going to be getting on or off. And since I've been in the harbor doing the bunker work, it's been a lot of fun. And one of the things that's really kind of fun is that, you know, it's a pretty small industry. And so a lot of guys, even at different companies, are people that you know and you've worked with before. And one thing I love about New York, although I'm not a New Yorker and I live 3 hours away from New York, I always feel like I'm coming home here because I've got so many friends that you can talk to on the radio and you hear a voice. So there are some people that I've known for 15, 20 years that I've never met in person, but they've always been that friendly voice on the end of the radio. And, it's kind of cool. Now Kevin's boat over here is what they call an ATB. I've explained that before. It's still classed as a tugboat, but it's ATB is an acronym for Articulating Tug and Barge. What that means is he doesn't have any of the push gear that we have. He has these giant, like 3-foot radius, 3-foot pins up in his bow that connect into the big barge there. And it allows the tug and the barge to articulate together. Not not in a yaw position, but in a pitch. So in other words, when they're going through heavy seas, the barge remains relatively static because it's so heavy, but the tug will move up and down, or will rotate up and down, and the pins hold it in place so that it doesn't yaw one way or the other, but the stern will go up and down and holds it in place. It's a really nice setup. There are those that might wonder why more boats don't have that. Hang on a second, I gotta talk to this guy coming around the corner here. Kings Point, Elk River.
Come in.
Good morning, I see you on the one.
Okay.
One of the reasons why, there are many different types of tugs, and some, and they all excel in one area and maybe not so much in another area. The ATBs are great because they can stay in push gear, well, pinned up, which would be the equivalent of us being in push gear. Where I can only handle a foot or two of a sea, they can handle, I don't know, up to 10, 15 feet, something like that. So they're really good at that. The bad thing is they can only join into their barge. And I guess in theory, you could have other barges that all do this, that all pin up the same way, but that rarely happens. Most ATBs are dedicated to one barge and they just use that barge all the time. I gotta write down the time here. And I go underneath the bridge, so I write it in the log later. You can see the tide really working on the buoy here. So what that means is I want to get real tight to the buoy, because when I get sideways, the tide's going to push me down onto the next tug coming our way. Now these two tugs right here, these two barges are the same size barges, but the one up closer looks much bigger, and that's because it's light, and the one behind them is loaded. So it's still a lot of barge over there, it's just underwater. So in other words, getting back to why, ATVs are really good in seas, they're really comfortable for the crew, but they wouldn't be so good for bunker work, because we have to pick up one barge, drop it off, grab another barge, drop that off, and by going through different barges, we wouldn't, they'd all have to be able to be pinned identically, and unfortunately there are a few things in this industry that all line up exactly right. So ATVs usually stay with the same barge all the time, where we don't. Now we got another light boat up here. We call it a light boat, meaning it's a tug without a tow. And I could call him, but there's really no need of that. We kind of all, now you might see I have a whole bunch of left wheel here, and that's because I was turning to get the bow turned up that way, and the tide is pushing on my stern. So even with this hard over, you can see it just straightened out the turn now, and it's just starting to come left a little bit. So now I'll straighten it out now that I got the turn taken care of. But anyway, yeah, so we rarely jam up the radio channel talking to a light tug unless there's something wrong. The light tugs can usually get out of the guy's way who's loaded, so that's usually how that works. Now we're coming around Bergen Point here.
Vessel traffic, critical, Newhouse departing St. George, northbound. Security call, 9 south,
Now here's another tug and barge up ahead of us. It's a light barge and he's pushing it what we call heads and tails. So he's alongside it and pushing it backwards. And I don't know if I said this in our previous video or not, but depending on the barge, some of the bigger barges, like he's got a 50 right there. When a 50 barge is light, there isn't a lot of barge in the water up by the bow. But the stern has these things called skegs, which are like permanently fixed rudders that are straight. So if he pushes it heads and heads, so in other words he's alongside but pushing it forward, he can go fine, that's all good, but once that bow starts turning, it's very hard to stop it. So by pushing it backwards, he uses those skegs to bite into the water, and it gives him more control. And that's something that we like to do a lot with that type of barge. And like I say, it depends on the barge too. There's some barges that couldn't care less. You know, if you have a barge that has the same amount of resistance in the bow as it does in the stern, then you can do it either way. But with these, with the machinery and the housing all in the stern and the rakes back there, it makes it so much easier to push it backwards and let those skegs bite in, and then you can kind of have a hold of it a little bit better that way. Here's a little bit of history for you. We're coming up to a place called the Old Bay Draw. And it's funny because I have no idea when they took it down, but it was long before my time. But if you look over here to the right, you can see some concrete pilings that are sticking up over there. That used to be a drawbridge that went all the way across the bay over here. And they've taken it down, I think the earth was cooling by the time they took that thing down. And it's still referred to as the Old Bay Draw. So sometimes it's fun with somebody new, or if you're talking to somebody who's pretending they're a lot more salty than they are. Oh, I know New York, I did this and I did that. So yeah, you ever get stuck having to wait for the Old Bay Draw to open? Oh yeah, I hate that. Thinking, oh, well, this guy's gonna call Bravo Sierra on him because Old Bay Draw hasn't been around for 100 years. No, I don't know 100 years, but long, like I say, long before my time.
Yes, that's good, Dad. I'll make it green. All right.
Seems like some of you are always asking about how the engines sound. And I'm protected in here in the wheelhouse. I got the air conditioning on. But I'm trying out my cordless mic to see how this works. And while we're going here straight with nothing really going on, no traffic or anything like that, I'm going to step outside and see if you can hear the engines any better. This mic picks them up. Yeah, that'll be an interesting test to see how that comes out. So we have Port Elizabeth here on the left-hand side. A couple big container ships there. Both of them taking on bunkers right now. In the comments I was reading this morning, people were asking why I turned around in the last video and didn't go heads and tails on the ship. And it really depends on the ship. Most of our barges can load and discharge on either side, but some of the ships you end up hanging off a lot further when you go heads and tails on the ship. But as you can see, this first ship here on the left, I don't know if it's still in frame or not, but somebody put it in heads and tails there, and it looks like it lines up great. So all depends on the ship and whatever the tankerman wants to do. Incidentally, it's kind of interesting. The tankermen are, there's a lead tankerman, what we call the barge captain, and his second man, and they're in charge of their operation. But when we're hooked to them, they're my responsibility, and we're in charge of them. So we can kind of say, well, we do whatever we want, and that's all fine. But when we leave, we've left them, then it becomes their responsibility, and so it's always kind of important to make sure that you leave a ship when it's properly tied up and not falling under the rake or anything like that. Most of the tankermen are pretty good. You know, the good thing about bunker work is everybody does the same thing very often. There's some bunker guys that have a book that they write in for every ship that they load, and they talk, and it's not like a Coast Guard log. It's their own personal thing, and they talk about where the cleats are, where the connection is, how the tie-up was, and all that sort of stuff. So sometimes I'll be headed to the ship thinking I'm going to go one way, and the tankerman will call me and say, hey, last time I went to this ship, this was messed up, let's do it this other way, or we do it this other way and it works better that way. And those are tankermen that are really on the ball. Now what you see over here on the right is there's what they call a drill barge with a spud sticking up over there. That's where when they're dredging and they get into ledge, those long columns that stick up that you can see through, those are drills, and they drill down inside and they explode the rock, and then they come and they dig it out and they put it in all these scows right here. So all these scows are off out of the channel, kind of hanging out, waiting for the next job or doing whatever they're doing. I don't see much happening right now, so maybe they're all home. It was interesting when the pandemic happened. I was really concerned that it would slow down shipping and have a negative effect on our business, let alone everything else. I mean, I feel odd saying that. I know that many of you that are watching this have been negatively affected, and many of you can't even get into work and that sort of thing. But anyway, my heart goes out to you. I've been lucky that we've been able to go. Anyway, through the pandemic, the shipping has continued. Unfortunately, it's slowed down a little bit right now, but things happen. The industry always has peaks and valleys. As you can see, there's two ships on this face right here. There's one up around the corner, and the ship that we're going to be taking this load to isn't even in. He won't come in until noon, I think he's scheduled to come in. So hopefully shipping will continue and won't require some people to have to stay home. That'd be a bad day. Like I say, don't think for a minute that I don't understand that many of you guys are stuck at home and it's a bad day for you ever since this pandemic hit, and my heart goes out to you.
Checked out. Checked out. It's a good day.
So oftentimes you'll hear me say that I'm working in New York, and we call it, I think technically it's the port of New York and New Jersey, but everyone refers to it as New York, even though the vast majority of our business is done in New Jersey. This is Port Elizabeth right here, and we'll be coming hard left and going down the Port Elizabeth Channel with Port Newark on the right. I don't know if you can see it yet, but there's a big white ship up there straight ahead at the face of Port Newark there, and that is an interesting tanker. It doesn't carry oil, it's an orange juice ship. There's a fleet of these ships that all they do is they move orange, and I believe it's, I don't think it's just straight orange juice. I think it's like orange, it's like in a concentrate. But they bring these refrigerated ships. I think they start out in Brazil and they come up here and they go all over everywhere. But it's hard to imagine a tanker full of orange juice. When you get up in the morning and you have your glass of orange juice, think that, you know, unless you live in Florida and they grew them in your backyard, there's a good chance maybe that orange juice at one time came via one of these big refrigerated ships. Now we're slowly getting the bow to start coming around. Got about 15 degrees of left wheel here. So I'm starting to get the bow to start moving over. And we'll start making our way into Port Elizabeth Channel. Now you can see next to that orange juice ship, there's a black ship and then a blue ship. I believe at least the blue ship anyway is probably a scrap ship, and that means that they're loading or discharging, I think they only load here, but they load it up full of scrap steel. And I would imagine that's what they're doing with the one that's straight ahead, the black one there, but I don't know. They do a lot of bulk product up there. We call these ships bulkers. Years ago, my dad would call it a freighter. We don't use that term that often. I mean, I think it's still accurate. You just don't hear it. You'll hear like tankers and container ships, and we'll call that a bulker. Now the reason why I can come in here fairly confident at a good clip is a couple reasons. VTS told me I didn't have anybody opposing me. I look on my chart plotter and AIS isn't showing anybody outbound or anything like that. And so I know that I should be fine. And of course I look out the window, and that's the one that's the most important. You see nobody coming, so I can roll right around here. And we start to look down the Port Elizabeth Channel. It's a beautiful day today. It's kind of funny when it's raining, the wind's blowing, maybe it's snowing, it's icy. Sometimes I'll lean out the window and yell at my deckhand and say, "Don't worry boys, June will be here." Well, June is here and it is beautiful. years ago when I worked for another company, we were moving dredge spoils. That means after they dredge stuff out, what they do is they put it in a scow and they bring it up. If you look over here, just over here to the right, you'll see a big blue crane with some blue equipment over there. There's a company over there that would go and they'd clean up all the dredge stuff, like if there was any rocks or refrigerators or cars or God knows what's in all that mud. They'd pull all that out, so it'd just be basically mud and sand. And then they'd add cement to it. And it's a special cement that obviously works with salt water, but also we'd have 72 hours. They'd put powdered cement into it. Then they had there's an excavator that has this big like egg beater on the end of it, and it goes and it mixes all, I mean, I think they were like 5,000, no, I think those were like 3,000, 3,500 tons of cement in each one of the scows, and they'd mix it all up, and then we'd have 72 hours to get it up to New Haven, Connecticut, and then they'd take it out of there still in a, you know, soggy state, and they'd bring it up and they'd cap landfills, and then over time it would set. And I guess they did that, so I don't know this for a fact, but I think they do that so that as rainwater starts to come in, it won't leach any of the contaminants that would be in the landfill into the water table. You know, the rain would go down, hit the cement, and slide off to the edges. Oh, you know what? There's a big pile of salt. You can't see it now, it's out of frame, but when I told you I didn't know what they were loading in that other ship, well, they could be loading salt. There's a huge salt pile over there. That ship is definitely, the blue ship is definitely getting loaded with scrap. Now once again, I don't know if we can see it or not, but if you can see it on the chart, we're going to be going right here. And my red line goes to here, so I know it's 6 minutes to there. So add a few, it'll be about 8 minutes. When I get up about 6 minutes out, I'll call Chris, my AB, and tell him to get ready, and he'll go down there. Actually, this is a good time for me to call the office and make sure I put this where they want it. I think I know where it is, but I just want to double check with them. Hey Steve, hey, with this 315, can I go alongside that barge that's up there? Can I just be along, or is that thing got to go before I go? Okay, very good, thank you.
We're about 4 minutes out from the bridge. Any chance we can get through, or do you want us to stop?
Now we'll have a better look at this when we get up there. If you look at the chart, you'll see that there's nothing up there. That's because that's barges. They're not self-propelled. So because of that, they don't have an AIS marking where they are. But I think there's two positions up there. There's a position ahead of him that we could put this barge, and where he's at. I don't want to go up in the hold because in a couple hours, 3 hours or so, we're going to be going to the ship. So I just asked my dispatcher if I could just lay alongside that barge. And what that really means is I'm verifying that that barge is not, they don't have orders to go somewhere else before I get there. Now, as you can see, we're just about 6 minutes away, so I'm going to call my deckhand. Chris, 6 minutes out. Now we're making 7.4 knots, and it's a pretty loaded barge, so I'm going to start slowing down pretty soon. And if you remember over here, I have the throttle synced up, so I'm going to put this back here, about there, put it back to regular so that the two work together. I'm going to start reducing power, because if I go flying up there and try to stop this thing, I'll never get it stopped, so I have to start slowing down now and let the wave bleed off of the barge as I go. Now I'm going to take the binoculars and look to see if there are fenders on the barge that we're going to go to. Otherwise, we'd have to put our fenders down. He already has fenders out, so I don't think we have to do anything. We could put ours down too, but you don't want my fenders to get tangled up with his fenders. So usually if they have theirs out, that's going to be good enough. So we went from 7.4 down to 6.4 for knots. Bleeding off speed all the time.
Yeah, we're going to be changing our destination. We're going to step aside and lower in the bay race a little bit. We're waiting for berth to open up. So that's what we'll be stepping aside bay race.
Now that's the 30. I'm going to try to call this guy and see if I can get him to come out and catch a line from us. DS33, Elk River. DS33, Elk River.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, we're going to be coming up alongside. You didn't know if you'd come out and catch a line from us.
All right, no problem. Standing by.
Thank you. All right, so that'll work out. That'll make it easier for us. All right, down to 5.5 knots. Speed's coming off pretty good, so we're doing all right. Going to reduce a little bit more power here in a little bit, but I think we can keep it rolling like this for a little bit longer.
Oh, that way, Cody.
Hey, are we going to that other bar? Are we going up the corner?
No, we're going to go alongside them, and he has his fenders down, so we should be fine. And he's going to come out and catch lines from us. Yeah, right? That's what I was saying. My deckhand just said, where are all the ships at? He's inferring that it's very slow right now. Okay, we're doing 5 knots right now, so I'm going to pull it right back and take it out of gear and just let it coast. I'd be hard pressed to get this thing stopped at this speed, so I got to let it bleed off the power. So I'm coming at a bit of an angle here, and I do that on purpose. Remember, I can't bring the bow over. I can only bring the stern over. So I want to get the bow up tight, you know, up close to the barge, and then pull my stern over at the last minute. Or at least that's the plan. We'll see how it actually works. All right, so we're down to 4.2, but we're still cruising. So we're kind of going a little faster than I really want to go right now, but I think we'll be all right. We'll get a little bit closer, and then I'll start backing just to bleed off some more energy. Yeah, but 2 engines and clutch astern. Okay, so now as I'm getting closer, I see that I'm pretty far off, so I'm going to start twisting the bow over so I get that bow closer in, tighter to the barge. So I put my rudder hard over. I've got one that we're in what we call a right twist here. Clutch ahead on one engine. You can see the bow starting to come over now. That's about good. I can use the momentum of the barge, and I'll go back to backing on both engines again because now I'm just down to 3 knots now. I'd like to be going about half this speed, but we'll get it slowed down there. But anyway, you can see that just that twist, you put that twist, that energy of the twist in, and it continues to keep turning. We're still turning into the barge. So now I've got my rudder set hard to port so that I can get that bow out of there if I get into a problem. By backing with the rudder hard over in clutch like this, it doesn't really do much at all. So meaning it's not going to, it only, the rudders only work when the power's coming.
We're like 35 watts, and we overlap in there in like 30 feet.
Very good. He says we're 35 wide. So now I'm just backing on my port engine to try to lift the bow out a little bit because the bow is still coming over. So now I'm going to clutch ahead on the starboard engine to try to flatten it out a little bit. Flatten it out means that we get more parallel. And now we're down to 2.1 knots, which is...
We're overlapping the stern, and we're 30 wide.
30 wide. So he says now we're overlapping the stern of the barge with 30 wide. Now with my rudder hard over this way, what I can do, I'm trying to get in a better position so I don't ram the barge that I'm going up alongside. Once I get over that way, I can switch my engines the other way. And remember, you can't walk.
25, the engine in, so we started working way over, so we're like 35 out there.
Very good. Okay, so he says we're down to 25 and we're coming over pretty good. So what that means is I've stopped. I don't want to pull my bow out. Now I'm going to both engines astern because we're doing 1.8 and it's going to be very hard to stop this thing, and we're almost in position. So I need to start slowing down. My rudder's hard over so that I was saying that I can't walk the barge over, but maybe I can lean it over a little.
Like 15, 6,000 with that number down there is full, it would be like 25 feet.
Very good. It says we're 15 feet off and I got to come 25 feet ahead before I have coverage on their forward Yoki or Yokohama. Fender is what he's saying. These tankermen over here have thrown over a heaving line. They picked up a line. Those are good guys over there. Very good. Now we're 5 wide on the bow.
And like 12 more feet ahead.
All right, they've got a line over, and we're getting real. Shows that I can't do 2 things at once. I'm trying to talk to you guys, and I'm talking to Chris instead. So now I need to stop this thing. All right, we're just about lined up back here, so I'm just going to get this thing stopped, have you wrap it up, and I'll drive into it. And we don't have to tie it up great. We're gonna around 11:30, 12, something like that. We're gonna get underway again.
Yeah, no, we're good. We're heading to the quarter line. We're like 10 miles all the way down.
Very good. 10 wide all the way down. Haven't touched it yet. We're sliding over it. You can see that we're slowly, surely getting over there. That forward line will pull the bow over. I've got my rudder hard over and my starboard engine in clutch, which is pushing the stern over, and the forward momentum will pull the bow over. Now what I've done is just gone all stop so that we don't, I'm giving it another bump here. We don't want to come crashing over there. Alright, so we're good. We can check out a trap with traffic.
I got the up on stern and really cool out of here.
Very good. Traffic from the Elk River. We're all secure. 51. You can check me out. Thank you so much. You too. Okay, and that's about it.